Բարի երեկո, հարգելի ներկաներ, մինչև ելույթին անդրադառնալը ես նախ ուզում եմ հայրենով շնորհակալություն հայտնել ձեզ բոլորիդ, Ավստրալիայի հայկական համայնքին ինձ հրավիրելու եւ հայ ժողովրդի համար այս կարևորագույն օրը ձեզ հետ միասին լինելու համար։ Եվ ուզում եմ շնորհակալություն հայտնել ջերմ ընդունելության եւ ցուցաբերված հոգատարության համար։ Esteemed members of the Parliament, dear compatriots and friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and privilege for me to have traveled thousands of kilometers to stand here today, shoulder to shoulder with my dear compatriots from Armenian community of Australia, as we commemorate the 110th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. Today is a special day for Armenians everywhere. Though fate has scattered us across the globe, our history and identity remain our unbreakable bond, proving that what is truly inseparable cannot be divided. We gather today under a shadow of sadness, yet with hearts bound by resilience and remembrance. 110 years ago, the Ottoman Turkey carried its systematic campaign to annihilate the Armenian people, seeking to erase our presence from the ancestral homeland. We remember the 1.5 million souls lost, men, women, and children subjected to unspeakable horrors, forced marches into deserts, massacres, starvation, the destruction of families, communities, and vibrant Armenian culture. We remember the intellectuals rounded up and executed on April 24, 1915, signaling the dark intent that would unfold. We honor their memory, their stolen futures, and the enduring trauma etched into the fabric of Armenian identity. For over a century, we, the Armenian nation, have fought for recognition, for justice, and for the simple acknowledgement of truth. The denial of the Armenian genocide has not only compounded the pain, but also dangerously shown the seeds for history to repeat itself. And tragically, repeat itself it has. The lesson the world failed to learn from 1915 echo with devastating clarity in the events we have witnessed in Artsakh. The systematic, calculated, and complete ethnic cleansing of Artsakh is not a separate, isolated conflict. It's a continuation of Armenian genocide. It is the modern manifestation of the same genocidal ideology aimed at the eradication of Armenians from their homeland. While above the atrocities committed against Armenians during the genocide, I personally read in textbooks and history books and watched in films the horrors of the blockade and ethnic cleansing I witnessed with my own eyes, and was a person who, due to his mission, became the documentarian of those horrific events. As someone who has witnessed this modern-day genocide, I confess I never imagined I would stand here today speaking about yet another black page of our history. I never conceived that in the modern world, with all its lessons supposedly learned, we would see the unfinished genocidal dreams of the Ottoman Young Turks realized with modern means by those who embody that same ideology. When Azerbaijan blockaded the Lachin corridor in Artsakh in December 2022, under false ecological pretext, I was in Yerevan. I was unable to return home for 3 months. Imagine a human rights defender who could not go to the people whose rights he was supposed to protect. I visited Yerevan to participate in the Global Forum on the Genocide Prevention, an event attended by hundreds of guests from various countries, including international officials. These were officials who, despite defending human rights in their speeches, remained indifferent when faced with the ethnic cleansing of Artsakh. 3 months later, I was able to return to Artsakh through forest roads that were extremely dangerous to travel. The blockade's true horror remained unseen from distance. Its devastating impact became tangible only on the ground. During 9 months of the blockade, I witnessed people, including over 30,000 children, living in bitter cold without gas, suffering from frequent electricity outages and struggling daily for food. I have seen children looking at me with starving eyes and their suffering parents. I will never forget the helpless eyes of mothers of Artsakh as they struggle to somehow find baby food for their children. I have seen people with chronic diseases deprived of medicine and the elderly and disabled struggling for daily bread. I have seen crowded bread lines and people returning home empty-handed. I have seen people fainting from hunger in the streets, and I have listened to Artsakh doctors who were constantly raising alarms about malnutrition and miscarriage among pregnant women. During all that 9 months, the historical accounts and images of the Armenian Genocide I had studied from history books weighed heavily on my mind, like haunting echoes. I made every effort to inform the world, aiming to shatter the indifference toward the people of Artsakh, but tragically, my efforts did not achieve the desired outcome. Never again happened again. After starving us to death for 9 months, Azerbaijan attacked Artsakh in September 2023. For 24 hours, Azerbaijan bombed all communities in Artsakh, targeting the civilian population. I would recall the example of the village of Sarnakhpur in Artsakh, where 5 children died and more than 15 were seriously injured as a result of just one artillery fire. 2 young brothers, 9-year-old Navel and 10-year-old Mikhail, were among these children. This is just one case that I mentioned, but there were hundreds of such cases. Azerbaijan deliberately cut off the roads between communities, leaving people isolated, not even allowing peacekeepers or Red Cross to deliver aid or to transfer the dead bodies to be buried in Stepanakert. People with their families, young children and the elderly, walked for kilometers through forests at night to reach Stepanakert. Some of them were tortured on the way, many barely escaped. For the rest of my life, I will never forget the streets of my beautiful Stepanakert, which had turned into a cruel scene in those days. Streets filled with thousands of displaced people, hungry and exhausted, who had somehow escaped physical destruction. When the fire stopped, the deportation began. The forced deportation road, which was only 50 kilometers in length, lasted for days. That harsh road seemed like an infinite. A road that took away from your own home with every kilometer and made you realize that you are going nowhere. Dozens of people on that road, elderly, women and children, died. The testimony of Petros, a resident of Jardar village, tells, "Before reaching the bridge, my grandfather put his head on my mother's shoulder. Already at the Hakkari bridge, my mother realized that my grandfather has died. But she did not say anything so that the people on the bus would not be afraid." Dear all, people often ask if it was impossible to stay in Artsakh. My answer, and that of thousands of Artsakh residents, is very clear. It was impossible to live in a country where Armenians are called animals, where hatred towards Armenians is instilled in schools, where killing an Armenian is glorified. And finally, how can there be any talk of peaceful coexistence with Azerbaijanis when their only goal is to simply destroy you? Let us be unequivocal. This devastating campaign, culminating in the forced displacement of 120,000 Armenians from their homes under the threat of violence and starvation, following a brutal blockade and military assault, was carried out by Azerbaijan and was achieved with the full political, military, and ideological support and direct participation of Turkey, which emboldened and enabled Azerbaijan's aggression, continuing the dark legacy of its Ottoman predecessor. The erasure of Armenian cultural heritage, the denial of history, the dehumanizing rhetoric, the patterns are familiar. Beyond the immediate human tragedy, today we are also witnessing a systematic campaign to erase the material traces of Armenian history and culture in Artsakh. Ancient churches, monasteries, cemeteries, and monuments, standing for centuries as testaments to the indigenous Armenian presence, are being vandalized, destroyed, or altered to remove their Armenian identity. The complete destruction of the iconic Kanach Ram Church in Shushi, among countless other sites, is a vivid example of this cultural desecration, mirroring the Ottoman-era attempts to annihilate not just a people, but their very legacy. Adding insult to unimaginable injury, the genocidal Aliyev regime is now attempting to rename the streets of Stepanakert after the very architects of the 1915 Armenian Genocide, figures like Taleat and Enver. This deeply offensive act sends a chilling message to the entire world that their objective of exterminating the Armenian people and erasing their existence from their historical lands continues unabated. It is worth mentioning that after the 44-day war of 2020, Erdogan in Baku reaffirmed their participation in the war and said that the soul of Enver Pasha has been glorified. In my speech, I would like to make a special mention of 23 Armenian hostages illegally held in Baku. They are being subjected to false trials today simply because they are Armenians and because they fought for our homeland. Yes, the torture and inhuman treatment they are subjected to are also an integral part of the policy of hatred and humiliation towards Armenians. And we must do everything to achieve their release because it is a matter of the dignity of Armenian people. As we mark the 110th anniversary, our remembrance must be twofold: to remember the martyrs of 1915 and stand in solidarity with the survivors of Artsakh ethnic cleansing. The fight for justice for the victims of the Armenian Genocide is directly linked to the fight for the rights, security, return of the Artsakh people. Dear compatriots, today Armenians from Artsakh who have found refuge in Mother Armenia send a vital request to you and all Armenians. Never forget Artsakh. Never abandon the struggle for our homeland. Never allow its loss to become accepted over time. Artsakh has always been and will remain a cornerstone of Armenian identity, the enduring pride of our people. This profound truth must be our guide, for it is this truth that will one day lead us back to our homeland. On this day, our call to international community is precise. Recognize the Armenian Genocide without reservation. Condemn the ethnic cleansing of Artsakh, hold Azerbaijan and Turkey accountable for the crimes committed. Demand the immediate release of all Armenian hostages and the right of return for the displaced Armenians of Artsakh under international guarantees. Despite the immense tragedy the Armenian spirit endures, we survived 1915. We will endure this latest chapter. Our history is one of persecution, but it is equally one of the profound resilience, faith, and contribution. Let us stand together here in Australia and across the globe, remember the past, confronting the present and demanding a future free from genocide. We remember, we demand. Եվ քանի որ սկսեցի հայերեն, թույլ տվեք ավարտել հայերեն։ Գևորգ Էմինի մեզ հայ ժողովրդին նվիրված ստեղծագործության մի փոքր հատվածով։ Մենք փոքր ենք, այո։ Ձեզ ով էր ասում մեզ սեղմեք այնքան, որ մենք ստիպված ադաման դառնանք։ Ով էր ստիպում մեզ աստղերի պես ցիրուցան անեք, որ միշտ մեզ տեսնեք, ուր էլ որ գնաք։ Մենք փոքր ենք, սակայն մեր երկրի նման, որի սահմանը բյուրականից մինչև լուսին է հասնում եւ լուսավանից մինչև Ուրարտու։ Փոքր, այն հրաշք Ուրանի նման, որ դար ու դարեր փայլում է, շողում, սակայն չի մարում։ Շնորհակալություն։ Thank you.